he's like, why did you turn over there? I was like,
Okay.
I never do. I don't know why I did that.
All right, things that are going on up at your campus. I sent y'all the outline of this on, this announcement on Friday. And so if you want to go see this musician, incredibly talented, like I said, by 14, he was playing with the New York Philharmonic. No, he was playing with the, anyway, and then he was admitted into Juilliard. He's currently a professor out at UNT. So if you're interested in music and want an early start, perhaps contact, and you want to celebrate, that's a good thing to do. Stuff that's going on up at your university is today we got inflatable axe throwing. So if you want to go over during your lunch and have a little fun, do that. They got a Halloween fun run that y'all can't do because you're going to be in school. The Halloween Spooktacular is on Thursday from 5 to 7 up at the McKinney campus, where you basically can get some Halloween treats if you want to do that. One thing I definitely recommend to all of you, so guys, go ahead and reserve a space for this, because guys, this would look stellar on not only college admission stuff, but also if you're interested in being like an RA or getting a job on campus, it would look fantastic. Got the Halloween costume contest next Monday that you can, I guess it's at noon, so some of y'all might be able to run up there during lunch and have fun in your costume. We've got Beat the Provost Retro Arcade Tournament at 11 on Tuesday. Dr. Mary Barnes-Tillich, very nice person. Be fun to beat her or challenge her in arcade games. Big Pink Volleyball that y'all can't do because you're going to be in school. And of course, if you haven't seen it, there's Top Gun Maverick that you can go to. Leap Ropes course at the Herd Museum. If you're interested in that, we got the talent show. If any of y'all entered that, which I don't think you did, but if you did, make sure to go to that. Distracted driver education. Join us for an interactive and informative activities illustrating the dangers of distracting and impaired driving. That's from 11 to 1 on Tuesday, November 8th. And intramural spades. If you're over 17 or 17 up, you can participate in that. So there you got it if you like it. There you got it if you don't. Any questions? And guys, seriously, start taking advantage of the fact, yeah.
What time is the axe throwing?
I think it's from 11 to 1. Let me check again. Yeah, it's from 11 to 1 up at the Plano campus atrium. That's the big building that used to have the fountain in the middle of it. No longer does. But it's got the Cougar Cafe off to one side where you can buy some treats. Behind the Cougar Cafe, or actually to the left of it, is the place where you can get your student ID. And they also have some arcade games in that student engagement center. And like I said, we got the Halloween fun run, we got the trunk or treat. If you've got brothers and sisters and you want a safe place, or if you just want to get more Halloween candy, going up there and take advantage of that. All right, any other questions? And once again, just like always, I sent that to everybody in an email, so you'll have access to it. So if you do want to do something, you can click on the link. And remember guys, if you just want to go to like the library and have fun at the maker space with like the 3D printer and stuff like that, that's also available to you. All right. Turn this around. La la. That's one of the doors? No. Was it? It was. Greetings. Oh, hey. Ma'am, I don't take checks. It's going to have to be cash. No. Okay. Okay, this is where we got up to, correct? Yeah? Everybody's quiet.
Yes.
Okay, we should have gotten up to this. Basically, guys, remember, you have the Federalists, you have the Republican Democrats, and we've never had a situation like this. You know, America's just a baby. And the Federalists are freaking out because they've got this other political party that they see as their enemies, so they start passing all these laws against them, like the Naturalization Act basically expands how long it takes someone to be a citizen from 5 to 14 years. The Alien Act says that the president can deport anybody who he considers a threat to the United States. The Sedition Act basically banned criticism of the government, and you actually have 15 newspaper editors prosecuted under that. So the whole thing about freedom of the press and free speech, we're not playing that. And guys, the ink isn't even dry on the Constitution yet. Next slide. Well, how do the Republican Democrats respond to this? Well, basically, they take it to the states. And you have like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison that come out with the Virginia and Kentucky resolves. That basically asserted that states could declare a federal law void. So guys, the same guy that kind of set up the Civil War by doing the land ordinance of 1787 restricting slavery north of the Ohio River, well, now he's also starting states' rights, which is another thing that the Confederacy really built up on much later on. Meanwhile, in order to fund the new war that's going on, with France, basically they passed all these customs duties and other taxes. And basically, Pennsylvania had to come up with $237,000 to pay the federal government for what they were due. And basically, how they were going to get the money was, one of them was by a window tax. In other words, every window you had in your house, there was going to be a tax on it. And the bigger the window, the greater the tax. Well, how are they going to get this money? Well, the government has to come and actually measure your windows. So if you had like a 2-story house, basically you would see that the tax collectors were in town and were checking out the house. You'd start a pot and you'd boil water in it, and when they came to your house, basically you dump boiling water on them from the upper house, from the upper story. A guy by the name of James Freeze leads a rebellion against this, even though it is broken up by federal troops. Oh, and by the way, guys, because of taxes like that, the window tax, that's one of the reasons why, especially in Europe, some homes have wardrobes instead of closets. Like if any of y'all read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, well, the reason why they have a wardrobe, like that thing right there, instead of closet, is there's a tax on a closet, but not a tax on a wardrobe. Next slide. Meanwhile, on his own, a guy by the name of George Logan made contact with the French government. We need to put away our phones, please. No, I understand it's kind of a gloomy, doomy day. George Logan was a Quaker, the grandson of James Logan, and personal secretary to William Penn. Basically, he was a senator. He went to France to work out a deal with the French ministry to try to open the doors. He gets a door open. President Adams takes advantage of that, and he decides for peace. Because, guys, wars cost a lot of money. And needless to say, if you remember, the Federalists, they're not the biggest fans of the French, and this widens the gap between him and Hamilton. Ready for the next slide? Yeah. The Revolution of 1880. A revolution? Well, yeah. Well, the Revolution of 1800. Basically, the Federalists are once again split. Hamilton wants C.C. Pinckney. And again, because he's trying to get his guy, a lot of Southern Federalists are totally disgusted like that, so they support Thomas Jefferson. And this makes sense because, you know, he was from Virginia, so he was a Southerner. Meanwhile, his running mate, Aaron Burr, attracted a lot of the small farmers and craftsmen of the North. So what happens is you have a tie election with both the presidential candidate, Thomas Jefferson, and the vice president, Aaron Burr, getting the same amount of votes. And Jefferson says, okay, real funny, Burr, I'm the president, you need to, you know, stop fighting about it. Meanwhile, Burr says, what are you talking about? I got the exact same amount of votes as you did. The people have spoken. They want me. Well, if ever you have a dispute or a problem in an election, it immediately goes to the House of Representatives. And so they take a vote in the House of Representatives. It's another tie. They take another vote in the House of Representatives, and it's too close to call. There's no clear winner. They decide they're going to go for a third vote. By this time, you have Pennsylvania and Virginia threatening to call up their state militias and to march on Washington, D.C. if they can't help, you know, if they can't solve this problem. And basically, yeah, Virginia and Pennsylvania. And basically, Alexander Hamilton gets up and says, all right, guys, listen, I know we have Jefferson and some of y'all like Burr, but Jefferson at least is a gentleman, and Burr is a dangerous madman. So vote for Jefferson. They did. Jefferson wins the presidency, and after this, basically the 12th Amendment was passed. What did the 12th Amendment do? The 12th Amendment said, okay, we got to put it on the ballot. This guy's going to be president. This guy's going to be vice president. No longer is it going to be the one who has the most votes and second most votes. Ready for the next slide? So Thomas Jefferson and the Republican Democrats win, which causes the Federalists to freak out. Okay? The other political parties in power, this one that they've been so frightened of. So they try everything they can do to avoid the lunacy of the other political party getting into power. They try to pass a huge judiciary and put their candidates in so they have control of the laws. Meanwhile, how does President Thomas Jefferson react to this? Guys, remember, he's been the kick-around kid. As vice president under Adams, he was very rarely called on. Okay, underneath George Washington, when they wouldn't make peace with the French or side with the French, he quit his job. Basically, in his State of the Union address, he advocated for free speech for the party out of power. Because he'd been the kick-around kid. He knew that it's no fun. And we can't have this kind of every time the other political party takes over. Basically, they need to be treated as the loyal opposition. Okay? We know they see things different than us, but that doesn't mean that they're a danger. We don't have to worry about them. And basically, the Alien and Sedition Acts had built into it a time limit where it was one of those, if you vote for me, we will repass the Alien and Sedition Acts because they were timed to expire. And that was one way to try to get more votes is, hey, if you don't vote for us, those laws are gonna no longer be around. Well, the other party won, and Thomas Jefferson did what Thomas Jefferson does best, which is, he said absolutely nothing about it. And he just let them expire. He didn't say anything about it. Now guys, why is that so smart for him not to say anything about it? Why might that have been smart? Well guys, if ever, like, let's say you have a friend, or it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you break up with them, and you don't tell them why, what does that do? Besides drive them crazy. Like if I told my wife, honey, we're getting a divorce because you keep calling me after 9 o'clock, and that bothers me. If I give that excuse, what have I just done? I've provided the other party with something well, I just won't call you after 9 then. I promise, I'll change. You give them something. If, however, you just don't say anything, you let it fade away, then it's nothing to worry about. And silence is the opposition. Now, the Republican Democrats, though, they do recognize the danger of the bloated judiciary that had been created. So they basically say, that judiciary was too big, we didn't really need it, and they passed the Judiciary Act of 1802. Because like the Judiciary Act of 1801 had established like 7 new federal circuits, 14 additional courts. I mean, it was a huge thing. Now, this sounds great unless you're Marbury. Basically, to kind of burn it to the Republican Democrats, the Federalists, as they're going out, they give to James Madison the appointment letters of all those judges that are going to be created with the Judiciary Act of 1801. And they say, hey, look, can you go ahead and deliver those letters for us? And what does Madison do? Madison knows that courts are going to be cut back and they're going to be cut out, so he doesn't deliver them. Which might sound fine unless you're William Marbury. William Marbury was one of those guys that was supposed to be elected a judge. And he was going to get a new judgeship. Now guys, because of this, he goes and he buys a new house. He has to get things set up. He has to move to a new location. And he never gets his appointment letter. So he's out a whole lot of money. And he was supposed to get this job. It had been promised him. He turns around and he sues Madison for not giving him that letter. Everybody got it? And basically this goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. And in the case of Marbury versus Madison. And our Supreme Court Justice at that time was John Marshall. Who basically, this was like one of the first real tests of the Supreme Court. And in this case, he set forward the doctrine of judicial review. What's the judicial review? It's that it is the role of the federal, not state courts to decide the constitutionality of laws. So basically, guys, he's saying that the federal government is above and superior to the state governments. Now this totally renders the Kentucky and Virginia resolves that Madison and Jefferson in past moved, you know, those that said, hey, the states have rights and da-da-da-da-da. This clearly dictates that's not the case. But guys, it's not said that way. And this allows that little seed of state rights to continue to grow. And guys, because we do have a federal government, do states have rights? Do states have rights? Well, guys, in some states, marijuana is legal. Even though it's totally against federal, I don't understand how that's going on. But in some states, gambling is legal. In some states, even prostitution's legal. Because it's basically, it's the Constitution, that's something it's silent on, that the states can take up. Ready for the next one? And then, of course, if you're in a state like Oklahoma, you have Indian nations and national lands there, and that are separate from state, and it's totally weird. So then the Republicans start getting aggressive against the courts, and they want to weaken the Federalist control of the courts. So they start off by going with an easy guy, John Pickering. John Pickering was a guy who was devoutly anti-Republican Democrat. He was an alcoholic who suffered mental illness and was so unstable that even the staunchest Federalists couldn't argue against his removal. He was found guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors, impeached, and removed from office. Now, guys, why do you think they started with John Pickering? Why did they start with the easy guy? Well, if you're little, and let's say it's dinosaur, you're studying dinosaurs, you know, you're in 3rd grade or whatever, and you're studying dinosaurs, and you say, Mom, it's Dinosaur Week on the Discovery Channel. And every day from 9, or from, let's say, 8:30 to 9, they play a 30-minute show about dinosaurs. Can I watch it? And your mom says, well, I don't know. You know, your bedtime is 8:30. That's 30 minutes later than you. Mom, please, we're studying this. It would be so good. Okay, I'll let you stay up one time. And so you get to stay up on Monday and you watch it. And the next day you're totally fine. So when Tuesday night rolls around, you say, Mom, can you let me watch it again? Well, because everything went okay on Monday, you think that means you can do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and you're allowed to do it Thursday. And then on Friday, Jurassic Park is going to be on. And that's all the way till 10, okay? And because you've been good, what you've established is precedent. You know, I did it, nothing happened, so that means that it's going to be okay. Yeah, sure. Now, the reason why they wanted this precedence is because the real target that they were after was Samuel Chase. Chase had been a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was a staunch Federalist. He was the guy who had condemned James Freeze, the guy who led that rebellion and was later captured to death. And he had found editors guilty underneath the Sedition Act. So they really want this guy removed. And they gave Aaron Burr charge, because the House of Representatives was supposed to oversee his trial. Vice President has authority over them. So they thought Aaron Burr is going to get this guy and we're going to stick him to the wall. Well, no, because Aaron Burr actually gave the guy a fair trial. He allowed him to present evidence, nonpartisan hearings, and he was found not guilty. which shocked a lot of people, and he stayed in office. Now, Republicanism in action. Okay, Jefferson's vision for America. Now, y'all remember we talked about this last time. What did Hamilton really favor? What kind of America did Hamilton want? We talked about this last Wednesday. Nobody remembers what kind of America Hamilton wanted? What did he want America to be like? Ba ba ba. What? What did Hamilton want America to be like? Nobody here remembers? Y'all don't remember what the Federalists like what country? It started with an E. We used to be part of it. We fought a revolution against it. Their currency is the pound. Nobody knows what country we had a revolution against. And not only did we fight them in the War of Independence, but we also fought them in the War of 1812. We speak this language. English! He wanted America to be like England. So he wanted factories, he wanted industrialization, he wanted commerce, he wanted trade. Meanwhile, Thomas Jefferson and the Republican Democrats, he was all about, hey, no, we need we need an agricultural nation. We don't need to support industry. Let it take care of itself. We need small farmers. If everybody was a small farmer, then basically we could avoid the evils of overpopulation and large cities. If we want manufactured goods and we don't make them, we just use the profits that we make from selling our wheat and potatoes, and we get the manufactured goods from other nations. And basically the government needed to stay away from shaping the economy. You know, the free trade would benefit everybody. In other words, we don't have to have subsidies to help out industry. Now guys, is that true? Can any of y'all think of a way that Plano might have helped out a company and it helped out Plano? Well, once there was this tiny little corporation that was in California, and it said, we don't like California anymore. And you know, it had a few employees. And Plano said, hey, tell you what, you can move to Plano. We'll give you $7 million. You won't have to pay taxes for 7 years. I don't know how much the state government gave them. We promised we'd build up infrastructure to make sure they were taken care of. What was this little company? Huh?
Was it Tesla?
Not Tesla. Tesla's down in Austin, and but what little? It was a car company.
Honda?
Huh?
Honda?
Was it Honda? I thought we had Toyota.
Or yeah,
It's
Toyota.
Toyota.
Worldwide headquarters or North American headquarters.
Because weren't they brought up in Japan?
No, they were out in California. And they said, we're tired of all the taxes and everything like that. We need a new home. And basically, Plano said, won't you make your home here? Now, Toyota doesn't have to pay taxes. Does that sound right? Well, but guess what? Toyota might not have to pay taxes, but you're the employee. You do. Oh, and guess what? Because you're now in Plano, you're going to need an apartment to live in or a house to live in. She has an apartment. She has a house. She'll gladly rent you that, so she's making more money. Not only that, but now you're going to have to buy food. So you can buy food from Kroger, you can buy food from Safeway, you can buy food from the new H-E-B that's going to be opening up here in Plano. And basically, that's going to be helping these guys out with money. You're going to need gas, which is going to help out her racetrack, or Quick Trip, or Exxon. You're going to have to, guys, basically, opportunity creates opportunity. But Jefferson's like, hey, chill, we're going to let companies just take kind of care of themselves. And that actually is going to help them grow as well. Like we talked about last time with cell phones that have almost no legislation, yet they're almost everywhere. Now, to help him with his vision of what America was going to be, he got together with Alberto Gallatin. Who basically was the Secretary of the Treasury. What was their goal? His goal was to make America debt-free by 1817. He thought that it was a sin for one generation to have to pay the price for the taxes and the debt that the prior generation had gotten them into. Well, guys, how are you going to be debt-free if you're limited into how much money you can bring in? So in other words, if I only bring in $2,000 or $4,000 a month, and my expenses are like, I don't know, let's say $3,500, and I've got a lot of debt, how can I pay off that debt quicker? Because I'm not going to be bringing in any more money, basically through budget cuts. If I can't increase how much is coming in, I can limit how much I'm spending out. So in other words, if I like going to the convenience store and getting a coffee every day, well, I might have to stop drinking coffee every day. So he reduced the staff, the government staff. He ended the fancy receptions that were being put on at Washington, D.C. He basically slashes the military. He cuts our army in half from 4,000 soldiers to only 2,000 soldiers. The Navy, it had 25 ships. Well, he cuts back on those to now there's only 7 in service. Now the rest were decommissioned, meaning they were put in dock, so they were still there, but they didn't have crews aboard them. They didn't have to pay for continual things, but they were put in dock and basically cut down our Navy to just 7 ships. Because we're going to be friends with everybody. We're not going to have enemies out there. Or at least that's what Thomas Jefferson believed. Indeed, he thought that it might be better to have, instead of a Navy with all these big ships, that instead we pursue a Navy with just like river ships to protect our rivers. Ready for the next slide? And basically, he privatized control of the economy. This basically put more of the responsibility of the development of the economy into private hands. Now, as you can guess, this policy was very successful in domestic areas, but internationally, difficulties arose. You ready? With our little friends, the Barbary Pirates. Basically, the U.S. had experience with the Barbary Pirates underneath Washington. We paid them a lump sum payment of $642,000 with an annual tribute of $21,600, which was incredibly cheap. Why? Because every year, let me go and bring this over. Every year, Great Britain paid them. Here we go. We're paying $21,600. Okay? Every year, Great Britain paid them 250,000 pounds. The French paid them 100,000 pounds. Even the nations of Denmark, Sweden, and Venice paid 30,000 pounds every year. Well, here in America, we say peace is our passion, but in the case of this exhortation, tribute or war is the usual alternative with these Barbary pirates. He stops paying them, they capture one of our naval vessels, and basically war is declared. He is the first president that ever dispatches American troops to a foreign area by sending them to out to the Mediterranean in 1801. Here's the Barbary Coast right here. And basically with this, you know, we've got these big, fast, incredibly fast vessels, but the Barbary pirates keep us up to, it's basically a cat and mouse game. One of our new ships, the Philadelphia, is captured by them, and they take it into their headquarters at Tripoli. And basically, Stephen Decatur, who was only 24 years old, leads kind of a special forces mission to go in, and they knew they weren't going to be able to rescue the ship, so because they couldn't rescue it, they were going to just blow it up. Yeah, sure. No, it's almost time for class to be over. No worries. We're going to be, may as well stop the camera because